guys, and welcome back to another sculpting tutorial. Today we're going to be making croissant bookends. Since I've made quite a few of these, I have a nice little system down that I like to stick to. So I'm going to start by taking off a chunk of my B-mix clay and essentially rolling out a slab. I like to pound the clay first with the rolling pin. It just gets some of the harder work out of the way for me, and then I'll start rolling after I get it down to a nice height. For these bookends, I'm making the slab about a 1/2 inch thick. They make something called a slab roller, and I think my life would be significantly easier if I had one of those at my house, but I don't. So we're rolling by hand, and that's fine because we need an arm workout every once in a while. So once my slab is to my liking and about a 1/2 inch thick, I take this little paper template that I made for the bookends specifically. I lay it down and I trace it out with my needle tool. It makes things go so much faster, and sometimes we just need that when we're making a bunch at a time. With this design, the side of the bookend that touches the books is higher than the side of the bookend that is sitting like on the shelf. So this template I have, it has a mark like halfway down for the shorter side. So you'll see me do 2 of the long ones and then 2 of the short ones. And I basically connect a long one with a short one. Since I don't have a slab roller, I'm constantly trying to feel if the clay slab is even, like around the whole thing, because I have had in the past some bookends turn out where, you know, like one part of it is very skinny and then the other part is super thick, and we just want to avoid that, and we like the same thickness all around. After I have all of those traced out, I peel the excess clay out from around them and make a little pile, because that is what I'm going to be making the croissants out of. The very first step of making those croissants is wedging the discard pile. We want to make sure there are 0 air bubbles, because an air bubble in a kiln will blow up your entire piece and it really sucks. So after it's wedged, I take the clay and just make it like a general shape of a croissant in the size that I need. And then I have this pretty quick way of making the croissant shape where you can see what I'm doing right there. I'm basically just taking off the clay, and it works out just so perfectly. I don't even know how to explain it. You can just see what I'm doing. It works out so perfectly because, you know, a croissant is just a bunch of flaky layers, and yeah, just watch this little technique. Once I am satisfied with the size and the shape of this, I just take water and use my finger and go over the whole piece. Water just smooths it out so fast. I don't even use a sponge for this part. But yeah, once I have this smooth, I go on and start wedging for the next croissant, because we're making 2 bookends. It's a set. So yeah, making sure there's no air bubbles and making that general croissant shape and refining it, and you know the drill. There's been times when I have made these croissants, whether it be for my ornaments or these bookends or the candle holders, where I actually am making them and rolling them up like an actual baker does. Sometimes it's worked out, but more often than not, I have had air bubble issues, so that is why we just take it from like one chunk of clay now and wedge out the air bubbles, and then yeah. Moving right along, the next step in this process is to smooth and refine the actual structure of the bookends. I definitely want to use a sponge for this part. You can see how rough the edges are on these, so the sponge, the texture of it really helps smooth it out faster. But this is just water and the sponge, and I love doing this part. It's very therapeutic, and I hope you enjoy watching it. After smoothing them out, the next step is to join them together. So to do that, I take my wire brush tool and I score. I don't know if you've ever heard the term score and slip, but it's how you join two pieces of clay together. Essentially, I'm brushing it and making these vertical marks with the wire brush, and I'm doing the same ones in the same direction to both pieces. The next thing you do is add water or the slip, which is just like very watery clay, and you join the two joints together. Once I join those together, I really like to reinforce these pieces. The bookends, as they dry, sometimes they can pull apart if the joint is not well secured, basically. So I smush it together with that wooden scraper tool, and then I take my little paintbrush, smooth it out, and then I actually add in this extra piece of clay that I just slip and score right into the joint, and it makes me feel better. It's just extra reinforcement. So yeah, I put this extra piece, fit it in there nicely. I take that wooden scraper tool again and just really smush it in there, and it makes me feel a lot better, and the piece is not top heavy anymore, and it just has the strength it needs. Next step is to smooth out and refine. I mean, you've noticed I've done this the entire process. I'm really big on smoothing things out to make them look really nice. Now I am deciding where I'm going to put my croissant. So I kind of just like press it in there, and then we need to slip and score it. I feel like I should say score and slip it because you score it first. So that's what I'm doing here. I made a little mark, so now I know where it needs to be joined on the bookends and the croissant. So I just wet those areas, and then I push it nice and hard into there. And then you'll see me do the extra reinforcement like I just did with that joint, and now I'm doing it with the croissant. As clay dries, it shrinks, so you want to be really careful to make sure that you're joining things that have like similar thickness, and you want things to dry very, very slowly, because if it does have different thickness, like the croissant is a pretty decent sized chunk of clay, and the sides of the bookends are a little bit thinner. The sides of the bookends are going to dry faster, and they're going to want to pull away from the croissant. So just the extra reinforcement really, really is important, and it saves a lot of time and heartbreak as your piece is drying. The very last step that I do, or almost the last step, is to put the details onto the croissants. I just handle them so much that I wait until the end to make sure that they don't look all messy, and I put in the little detail work there. This is actually the last step, and that is setting them up to dry. So like I said, as clay dries, it shrinks, and I have found that as these bookends dry, the sides want to almost like peel up, and they end up being crooked. I need these to be like super straight because they're going to be sitting on a shelf and pressed up against a book. So it needs to be like perfectly a right angle. I have found that using little pieces of wet clay and just making sure that I secure the two ends together with those pieces, they dry really nicely. The very, very last thing I do is put this whole piece under a plastic bag, let it dry very slowly, and we're all done sculpting these croissant bookends. I hope you enjoyed this video. I can't wait to make another one for you guys, and thank you for watching.